Hey everyone, I'm giving just a few minutes for everyone to join us. I'm watching the room open up. Attendees coming in. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Ariel. Hi, Carolyn, Chris Nicole, Dennis Warner, all these wonderful names I haven't seen in quite a bit. It's great to have you here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Keep the Music Moving, a town hall on touring with the instruments. I'm Cindy Cogwell. For a quick visual description, I'm here in a somewhat sunny slash gray office. We're wearing all the emotions in the weather today. I'm wearing a green ball cap and a smile with brown hair and brown eyes. I've always got a smile, to be perfectly honest. I'm the programming and community director here at Folk Alliance International, and I'm really happy to be here. Before we begin, I'd love to take a moment to note that we are joined today from folks from all around the globe and to collectively recognize the importance and the difficulty of offering land acknowledgements within online events. I am joining you from the indigenous land of the Chickasaw and Quapaw Nations, also known as Memphis, Tennessee. We invite you to not only join in acknowledging our shared responsibility towards reconciliation, but to commit to taking personal, meaningful, and measurable actions towards the healing of legacies of colonization, forced migration, and cultural erasure. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the Indigenous legacy of the land you are on, Scott's going to drop a link in the chat to help you explore that further. With that grounding in mind, it is my great pleasure to start today's session. The session is being recorded and it will be available on Folk Alliance's YouTube channel later this month. So if you have to step out or if you're joining us late, don't worry, we'll be here for you. Today, we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of touring with instruments, particularly the challenges and best practices for air travel. Whether you're a solo artist, part of a band, managing a tour, we're going to cover tips, stories, strategies, and just anecdotes on how to make traveling with instruments a little bit smoother and safer for you all. We're also going to bring a lot of questions that we may not know the answers to, but we're going to get the conversation started. I am thrilled to turn things over to our moderator today, Hilary Saunders, an accomplished journalist, editor, music advocate, and might I say, fantastic Folk Alliance International board member who will guide us through today's conversation. Welcome, Hilary.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. You are the best. Thank you to everyone for being here, both on this esteemed panel and also all of y'all participants and in the chat. So just a quick, to continue that quick overview, we're going to spend the first half of this session or so talking amongst the panelists. I've got some questions for all of you. And then the second half of this panel, we're going to open it up to everyone else. So please throw your questions in the chat if and when you have them. And like I said, we'll spend the second half of this discussion hopefully answering them and giving y'all some practical information that you can take with you on your future tours. So to start, I'd like to go around and just have all of us introduce ourselves a little bit more. So to start with, my fellow board member, Mary Bragg, please kick us off.
Sure. Hello. I'm Mary Bragg. I'm a Nashville-based singer-songwriter, producer, engineer, and touring artist. Most applicable to today's conversation. Are we saying a little bit right now about our experience with touring and these things, or are we coming back to that in a second?
I'm gonna get back to that.
Yeah.
Next.
So that concludes my introduction. It's great to see you all around the world. I'm loving all the bits in the chat. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so
Let's go to Chris next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Matthews. I am also a singer-songwriter, touring musician. Yeah, I have lots of anecdotes to tell you. I drive and fly an awful lot in a year's time, so looking forward to getting this conversation started, and really happy to be here.
Great, and let's go to Dan.
I'm Dan Navarro, a 35-year touring recording artist, 41-year professional songwriter making my living at it. I spent a lot of years on the board. I spent a lot of years as president, and actually co-wrote the piece that we are trying to update with this webinar. There will be a ton of anecdotes, and some of them are hills to die on.
And lastly, but surely not least, Ben, please.
Thanks so much. I suppose it's my job to make sure nobody dies in the process. Grateful to work with you, Dan, and everyone. And thanks for taking the time. My name is Ben Kessler. I'm Director of Government Affairs for the American Federation of Musicians. We are the AFL-CIO affiliated union for the United States and Canada, representing about 70,000 musicians between the two countries. The reason this issue is pertinent to my work, as you all may know, thanks to Dan and so many other arts advocates in updating the regulation nearly 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago at this point. And that's 14 CFR Part 251. But we know that there's a lot of work still to be done. And not only we're going to talk about what happens on the planes, but those security checkpoints as well. So just grateful to be a part of the conversation. Thank you.
Great. So I think it might be maybe a soft landing, haha, so to speak, if we all sort of start with a personal anecdote of either or some experience of traveling with an instrument that you managed to have a smooth journey, and or an experience while traveling with an instrument that has scarred you for life and what you had to do about it. Let's kind of stick in the same order that we just went through. Does that work? Great.
I think mine might be the least interesting because I'm the one in the group who kills people with kindness, and I really hate confrontation in the airport. And the other day I saw a lady get arrested in the airport at BNA, that viral video that was on Instagram with the woman with the two hats. I never want to be that person getting in trouble in the airport. So my MO honestly is like, bring the instrument that I can put in my very reliable Reunion Blues case. That is not an advertisement, but that I can carry on my back. And I have been able to do that with my guitar on my back, my backpack on the front half of myself. And we'll talk about the Southwest experience of just sort of always flying with an airline that you can rely on, TBD 2026. But for me, it's been my entire MO to check a merch suitcase, check my regular roller bag, and same for my guitar player who tours with me, carrying on a guitar, always, always, always having a list, being in the A boarding group no matter what, because you will not get your guitar on board, and you will definitely anger some flight attendant if you try to board with a guitar in the B or C group, at least in Southwest. And I'm going to be brief here because I do think the anecdotes that are coming from Dan and Chris in particular are robust and helpful, and really, like, I just am always the one trying to avoid confrontation. So, like, I'm the rule follower. I can't wait to hear what Ben has to say. I love to just, like, know what I'm supposed to do, and that's why we're all here, because we're trying to get to the bottom of, like, let's make sure we can get to the show on time without having a damaged instrument. I also will advocate for, like, not bringing your babies, like your guitars or pianos or whatever your instrument is that is the most precious to you, because pretty much just like every time you get in a plane and you wonder, whether that might be your last day in this life, I have the same feeling about my guitars on a plane. Like, well, this might be my guitar's last day in this life, because you're totally giving it over to the circumstances that are completely outside your control. So I would not recommend bringing your vintage $12,000 Martin if you're in that category. Can afford a vintage, not me, but anyway, I'll pass it over to Chris now for all the wild.
So I actually just recently, literally just got back about 36 hours ago from traveling to Greece, and it was my first time flying with British Airways. And it was actually a very informative experience because unlike Southwest, which is who I usually travel with as well. I'm also based in Nashville, so very frequently flying out of BNA. Southwest, the reason I typically fly Southwest is because they very consistently use the exact same plane. They are 737-800, 737-700, almost always. And the oversized bin for those planes fit. I play a big body guitar. I'm a big person myself. I like a big guitar. I play a dreadnought, travel with a dreadnought, and my dreadnought always fits in the overhead bin on a Southwest plane. Has never had an issue with that. The other day, however, flying British Airways, I go up, I have on my best little cute, sweet cheek smile, walk right up there, and I'm like, hello, I'm just gonna gate check this because I already know they're gonna be like, you can't put that in the overhead, like in their very polite British ways. And it was actually even more dramatic than that. They were just like, oh, we don't even allow a case that is not a hard case to come onto this airplane because they've had so many shenanigans. I travel with a mono case, so it's a hybrid case. So the neck, it has a neck mechanism in there that keeps the neck stable and secure. It's not as soft as like just a gig bag. It's like a hybrid. It's like in between a hard case and a gig bag. And so as I'm seeing them tell me, no, that's a soft case. You can't even bring that on the plane. I was like, hold on one moment. I'm immediately in panic mode. I unzip the guitar case. I show it to them. I like thump on the neck mechanism so that they can hear how hard it is on both sides. I show them the bottom of the case, which is this huge boot. So I like thump on that so they can hear how hard it is because I'm literally flying that day to go to Greece and have been paid to come do that job. So it's not like I can go home and be like, it's cool, guys, I'll just fly in tomorrow or the next day. No big deal on this international travel. And the person at the gate agent was incredibly receptive and was just like, oh, okay, hold on one moment. Let me go get my supervisor. Supervisor comes. I give the supervisor the same demonstration with audible techniques and clicks that she can hear and feel. And she says, okay, if you feel safe with it, I will sign off on it. And that was that. The plane ride was great. I got to my destination, guitar in perfect condition. Came home the other day, same thing, guitar in perfect condition. And so I think, like Mary says, we're both good Southerners. We very often like to let our good Southern upbringing do the heavy lifting for us. It's really hard to be mean to Mary's sweet little Southern charms. And it is very helpful. The gate agents so often take a lot of heat from so many angry folks. Traveling is very stressful. People are so disgruntled, and so if you already know you're going to be coming at them with a thing that makes them nervous, with something that they don't necessarily know the rules on, if you can keep a level head, even if what they're telling you is making you feel very anxious and panicked, if you as the artist can just prioritize the fact that you need to make sure your baby gets to where you're going in good order, and at the same time you do, being able to kind of just take a breath, give them the facts, and hope that everything works out okay. It has served me very well. I've only had one incident of getting an instrument back to me damaged, and it was when I very first started touring, and I've not had any instrument damage since then. Knock on everything wooden in my vicinity.
Thank you, Chris. Just a quick clarification question from the chat. So did British Airways check your instrument through to baggage claim, or did they just like gate check it so
Thank
that
you,
you picked it
Hillary
up?
and chat. Yeah,
Yeah.
for the clarifying question. So no, they did not let me gate check it. They were very, very firm on that. Absolutely no gate check. It went all the way to my final destination both times. And what they did was allow it to be from Dulles, flying from Dulles to Greece. They actually had one of their people hand escort it down to what is basically like their fragile area. And then flying back from Greece, they had me actually take it over to their fragile place. And so it went in with the regular baggage, but it was tagged and noted as being fragile. They handled it with extreme care, and my baby came in one piece. It's not a $12,000 Martin, but it's a really nice Martin. So I was
Yeah, and
very
that was
happy that
Delta.
it got back.
That was British Air, right? British
Yeah,
Air.
British Air.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Just one more quick thing, logistically speaking. If you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A box that should be along the bottom of your Zoom room, sort of to the right, and not in the chat. Helps me keep it organized so that we can have a more efficient and productive webinar. Thank you. Thank you. On to you, Dan.
Hey there. So, being the old guy here, I come from a different world, but I've adapted. When I first started touring, I toured with a three-piece backing band and my partner and myself, five pieces. And we shipped everything using Rocket Cargo, Rockit, which was the preeminent cargo shipper for the music industry. And that's how we got things around: drums, a bass, an upright bass in a flight case, a cello, and our guitars. In 1996, we ended up having to go out as a duo, and there was a game changer. We checked our guitars going from Los Angeles to Milwaukee. In Omaha, the guitars went to St. Louis, and we went to Milwaukee. We were opening a 24,000 seat sellout, opening for the Bodines in Milwaukee, and we didn't have guitars. The guitars showed up 5 minutes before showtime, and from that point on, we carried on consistently. I use, first of all, I tour with Taylor guitars because I don't give a dang what happens to them. I have Martins, I have Gibsons, I won't tour with them, period. They only go to the studio, they don't go on the road. And I've had guitars broken a little, not from airplanes, and they're easy to fix. I use the Taylor soft case, which has plastic in the lid and plastic in the sides, so it's got some rigidity. I wouldn't check it. It has robust straps, and I make sure I have it on both shoulders so that the top of the guitar only sticks a few inches over my head. It's less obtrusive. Both Mary and Chris have hit on something vital when you're dealing with gate people: courtesy. The second you get hot, they can pull it. They can pull the plug on you. They are the law, period. So you're not going to get anywhere by being belligerent, even if the rules are on your side. With regard to the department, pardon me for talking so fast, but I'm prone this way and I've had a lot of coffee. The DOT rulings only apply to domestic carriers in the United States. An American carrier that goes overseas, rules are out the window. An overseas carrier, rules are out the window. So when I just came back from a month in Croatia and Italy, and I used a hard case, I used the factory Taylor hard case, which is solid wood. I mean, it's plywood, and it's got very, very thick padding. Is it as good as a Calton case? No, but it's a lot lighter and a lot cheaper. I bought the case for $150. The Taylor cases are about $100 to $125. Mono cases are great. Reunion blues are actually better, but they're bulkier. And so that's a decision. I have one Taylor that's too big for the Taylor case. I use a Reunion blues on that. All of these options are good. I promise I'll talk a little slower later. The main thing here is that everything is in flux, and Ben will get into that. By the way, the existing ruling, Ben put in the chat. Find it, bookmark it. It's real important. And in the early days, between about 06 and 12, I had that on my phone if I had to show to say, no, this is allowed. If they get hot with you, you have to go with it. But I don't, I simply check everything. The gate check issue is interesting with regard to overseas, because I'll do that with a hard case and just say, I just did this so it wouldn't go through the conveyor belt. Ellis Paul has a guitar that's made of two different kinds of wood. It's very dark on one side, very light on the other, called Black and Tan, and it's split. Lisa Nemzo had a vintage guitar come off the conveyor belt in shreds. They just went, oops, it fell off the flatbed and got run over. That's a fluke. That is a freak accident, not bad handling. But they just set it on the conveyor belt for her to discover that way. The potential for damage is enormous, but you can do some things to protect and make sure you know what the rules are. With Southwest changing the rules, Chris is correct. All 737s, everything fits. Don't think that because the numbers go up that there's a bigger overhead. 777s aren't big enough. 757s maybe, but they've got a ridge inside. And yes, I subscribe to Seat Guru that will tell you what the exact equipment is and what the configurations are, so you know what you're dealing with. I'll take a breath now.
Mary, go ahead.
Just want to add, before I forget, if we're talking about international travel, the last time I was in Europe was a few years ago. I just took a recommendation from Kashana and Caroline Spence, who said, just book the extra seat for your guitar, because a lot of those planes just don't have the room either in the closets or in the overhead bin space. And if you're taking these little regional jets across the UK or Europe, It's not that much more expensive to simply book a seat for your guitar. And I did see some lingo the other day in the new Southwest policy that is similar, that they are actually allowing you to purchase a seat for your instrument, so long as the requirements for those parameters are met, which I'm sure are in flux with every airline and every country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But something to keep in mind, if you can spend the extra $100 on a seat literally for your guitar, and then they can't do a thing about
Can I add to
And I'll
that?
just
Um, if it's an extra thousand, it's an issue. You might be better off just buying a cheap guitar when you get there. With regard to carriers, if you're on any regional flyer that's on an Embraer or a Canadair, you will not fit. It will not, your guitar will not fit no matter how much you're allowed. The overheads are just not tall enough to even accommodate the really bad gig bags that have no side support or neck support.
And I'll just say, just that because I saw someone ask in the chat, how much did they charge the experience with British Airlines? And they actually didn't charge me anything. They weighed the guitar. It was like seven, I think they use kilos, not pounds, and
Kilos.
that it was fine. So they didn't even charge me anything for that. So just to answer that question that I saw someone ask about that.
And quickly, some overseas carriers charge you a €60 surcharge or £60 surcharge. British did it, Turkish Air did it, KLM did not do it when I just came home, to be able to check the guitar as normal. They have an instrument surcharge. Go through the website when you're booking your flight and check all the rules.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Dan. Ben, do you want to chime in here about sort of what the rules are, at least in the US, for booking like an extra seat for your
Sure.
instrument?
And so,
Uh,
and I know, and thanks for re-upping in the chat, and thanks, Dan, for putting a plug in for people to be familiar with the regulation, because there is references to what you can and can't do with your instrument on if you're buying a ticket, and just being mindful depending on the your aircraft and the crew and this really the size, is that once you're on the plane, as Dan referenced, like once you're trying to board, you're trying to, have that great relationship with the gate agent. The flight attendants and the crew are their primary mission. I think it's so important to keep in mind at each step is to keep everyone safe and make sure we get to point A from point A to point B safely. So if they determine that for some reason your instrument is taking up too much space or could not, say, you have 3 seats, does it have to go in the window? I think, and just being mindful of the fact that safety is their primary mission. So if there is that moment in which your instrument would keep you from being safe or anyone else from being safe, just being mindful of that none of this is totally a slam dunk, right? It's from, I think, from security to your flight, always be prepared. And that's really what I am trying to underscore in our relationship and building a relationship with the airlines, is be prepared for that, your instrument going underneath the plane. You might think you might have the extra ticket, you might have the regulation. If for some reason the equipment, the aircraft changed, maybe it still doesn't fit. Maybe you have an inch that would somehow spill over into another seat and they say, no, your instrument's still too big. Just again, I think at security checkpoints, and hopefully we can get to that, but the regulation does talk about buying that extra ticket, but still be prepared, do everything you can for your instrument going underneath the plane.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. I did have a thought, which is that it is spooky season. So I was wondering if maybe we could go around and share like a horror story of something that happened like bad with an instrument, and then like while you were traveling and what you did about it. So like scary thing, spooky thing, but then resolution.
Yeah, I can start it off. The first guitar I ever had, my very first acoustic guitar, it was just this little bitty Fender acoustic. And I was flying out of LaGuardia, got to the gig, fine, no trouble. Coming home, I get to, I believe it was IID at that time, opened up the bag, and there is a hole about this big just in the bottom of my guitar. No explanation, no, like, here, we'll fix this for you, no, nothing. Like tried to talk to the people when I landed, and was just like, this was not here before. There's a hole in my guitar. Absolutely nothing. And so I got at that point to learn that sometimes those are just the breaks, that there's nothing you can do about it. I love that guitar just because the very first songs I ever wrote on guitar were on that guitar, so I still have it. But yeah, that was that. That was that. That was it.
Mary?
Come on. Hi. I'm thankful to have very few close calls, no real loss. I've never had to claim any claims on my tour insurance, which I would recommend for all of you. Um, but the hot tip I would recommend to, I'm a big, it's a little bit of a control problem, but I'm a big fan of avoiding things as much as possible, and just sort of looking out for the instrument. Like if it's going in the overhead bin, I always like to, I'm a big fan of the exit rows. So I'll um, place the guitar a few rows in front of where I'm going to be seated so I can keep my eye on that thing as the rest of the plane is being boarded. So my worst spooky nightmare has been when someone tries to put something on top of my guitar and I'm like, oh, sorry, sir, there's a guitar there. And then I sort of try to get my flight attendants also on side so that they can help me out and listen. If they're willing to close that bin early, if it's looking full, go ahead and have it closed. But I just am a big fan of like, don't even put the instrument directly above you. Put it within your sight lines.
It's a great point. Thank you, Mary. Dan, I am sure you have stories.
Oh, God. Well, I mentioned the one about the guitars going to St. Louis while we went to Milwaukee. They did arrive 5 minutes before set time, and the Bodines were going to lend us their guitars so we could get through the show. The late Eric Lowen broke the headstock off nearly every guitar he ever owned. And we were flying to Fort Lauderdale for a fan club cruise, and he opened his guitar case to discover the headstock had broken off. Now, we had to leave within 3 hours. So he did the unthinkable. He went to a guitar store and bought a new one. He didn't have a choice and had to make sure that he got a pickup installed so that it would actually operate. Not everybody has those resources. I fly less than I used to. I'm driving mostly, partly because I'm carrying multiple instruments now. But I'm about to go do a run day on Thursday. I'm flying to the East Coast, and I'm going to have to check a guitar and a hard case so that I can take one guitar and a soft case on Southwest because the old rules still apply till January 25th. 26th, they change. So I'm flying out to DC and going to check a suitcase. I'm going to check a guitar, my 6-string, and carry the 12-string on board because I don't like the hard case that I have for the 12-string. Hard cases are a way of preventing that, and a lot of the ones I used to like don't exist. Caltons are great; they're $1,500. SKB makes one that's about $450 that looks like an anvil case. I have an anvil case. Cost me $150 or normally $500. It's just really bulky and really heavy and really hard to manage when you're by yourself on the road. I used to do something whack when I would go to Focalines, which is I would check my guitar in a suitcase, in a hard case, and put my clothes in a soft case. And then when I got to the hotel, I would switch them so that I could carry a soft case from room to room when I was doing Focalines, going from room to room. And then when I get ready to leave, of course, it's funny when you're at the airport and you take the guitar, the soft case with your clothes in it and fling it and just watch them freak out. A few years ago, we had Dave Kirby, who did the song Taylor. United Airlines breaks Taylor guitars. He started a social media juggernaut with that. But his guitar was smashed into pieces, and I know multiple. I've been lucky that it hasn't happened. A lot of prevention helps. The right kind of case, the right kind of packing, and taking less precious instruments. I mean, I have a 1952 Martin D28. I've never taken that on the road. Ever, ever, ever. There's no reason for it. Um, Everything sounds just as good with the
I will,
Taylor. Go ahead.
I will add that one of my nightmare experiences on the road was actually in Nashville when I was living in New York for grad school. I came down and did a session and I borrowed a guitar. And it was the kind of thing where, like, normally you're like, yeah, I have a friend in this place and they have an extra guitar. Great. Maybe I do that in London. Maybe I do that on the West Coast, right? But if you are not familiar with that instrument, sometimes you get a bad fit. And in this case, this guitar had not been set up in many years. It kept falling out of tune for a session that was being videoed and audio recorded. And I'm the one that's like, it was a Taylor. And anyway, I just want to recommend, like, if you're going to borrow a guitar from a friend in a place, try to make sure it's a guitar that's actually set up and ready to go. If you're going to buy something random in Europe, or or have a guitar advanced for you by the presenter, by the buyer, make sure it's something that you actually are comfortable with, because it will screw your show up, and that sucks.
Real quickly, when we talk about airlines and how that works, I've had half a dozen conversations with Southwest over the new rules, and they weren't really able to tell me much. They're very focused on the ability to pick your seat. And I'm sitting there going, I don't care about where I sit. I want to get on the plane early. When they're saying that if you're A-list in the future, you will be no later than group 5. Well, that's not going to be helpful in any way whatsoever. And they're not saying whether their old system of early bird boarding for 20 bucks, 25 bucks will get you in the first group. But I've had good luck when I'm flying other airlines, which is I'll be looking at a group 5 boarding pass. And I just board with group 2, and I've never been stopped 5 times. Never been stopped. They just let me
I've
And
been
on.
stopped.
You
I
have
will
been
just
stopped?
say, for the rule followers, you can also use that same approach, but actually just ask them. Like, it is nice when they feel like they were giving you consent, that you're not just trying to pull one over on them. Most of the airplanes are like, well, we have our pre-board group, blah 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 blah. There have been a couple of times, if I've been flying something other than Southwest, I'll walk up to the gate agent and show them my guitar and say, hello, would you mind if I get on either with the pre-board or immediately after the pre-boarding group, so that I can just ask the flight attendant if they have room for this in the closet, just in case it doesn't fit in the overhead. So then that way you're like already letting them know, hey, one, I do this all the time. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm actually trying to make your job easier. And every time I've ever had to have that happen and asked to go on with those earlier groups, they're very good about consenting to that.
I just
I'll
figured if they were to stop me, I would say oh gosh, I'm a dope, and you all know that's a known fact anyway.
I'll add that I did see in the written lingo on the new upcoming Southwest policy that the ability to purchase early board boarding, I believe, is going away. That's part of the reason
Ooh.
why I'm like kind of frantically, even if A list is not as great as it has been, I'm still kind of frantically trying to get my flights in before the end of this year so I can maintain my A list status. Because to me, what's going to happen is, because capitalism is capitalism, the early boarding abilities are going to be given to the people who have bought the very expensive plane tickets. So if I can't pay $400 a leg, and I can't, then I'm going to be in the last boarding group. That doesn't work for me, right? So
Right.
I do want to hear more about Ben and Dan. I know you've had these conversations from the Southwest people, and Hillary, I'm taking your job. Do your job. Sorry.
No, Mary, that was a perfect
Well,
transition.
Yeah,
I
I'll
was
let
going
you
to
do your
ask
job.
Ben.
I want to add this based on what you're saying, and I'll shut up. Oops, too late. I also got a Southwest credit card, which gets you a free bag. A-list gets you a free bag, but you don't get 2 if you're both. And but the credit card gets you a quote free standard seat. A-list gets you a free preferred seat. If that's of any correlation. And I'm actually doing a flight up to San Francisco to see my brother. One extra flight I don't need to do just to make A-list this year for next year. That's because if it's not good enough, that's fine, but I'd rather find out that way. We're going to have a lot of rules gaming, and maybe we need some sort of either Facebook group or ongoing conversation about how this works. I have a feeling all these people in the chat are going to like that idea.
Yeah. Thank you all. This is like so great. And I think also the hot tip of like other things we can do, just like, the Southwest credit card idea is like things that we all have to sort of be aware of.
I got the
But
basic credit card and it doesn't come with enough. If had I known, I would have, but the other's like $400 a year fee, but you get more perks. I want to ask Ben to tell us what's coming. That was the eye opener for me when he and I chatted last week.
I would actually like to add on to that. One of the things that we discussed in advance of this panel was basically just knowing what you're getting into, that this process of traveling with instruments actually starts way before you get to the airport. So Ben, if you could actually give us sort of an
Yeah.
overview of all of these things that, musicians can be aware of and how best to prepare even before the whole transportation process
Yeah.
starts. That'd be helpful.
Thanks for the opportunity. And again, I've been at the AFM, the American Federation of Musicians, for about a year and 2 months. I was Congressional Affairs at the National Endowment for the Arts before taking this job. And this is an issue that came to me before I started, and it was flagged for me specifically by our vice president, Dave Pomeroy, who's the president of our Nashville local. So no, everyone around the country, and specifically you Nashville musicians, I hear from Dave about this issue all the time. And so the way that I think about it, because so I'm based in DC, and I do government affairs, so I think of it, all right, who has jurisdiction? So who are those people that you see first? And it's TSA for those in the United States, it's TSA, it's that airport security. And what I've experienced, what you all may have experienced, but what I want to flag for everyone is you will experience it, is these smaller machines. And thanks to Antoinette Follette, our director of communications, who I know is on the Zoom, I'm going to put in a graphic that she made with some words I put together in coordination with TSA, giving people a heads up about what to expect about these smaller machines. And I think when thinking about them, and it's the same thing that I think about when I think about the flight crew, who are these people that you're encountering? They are TSA agents and they are part of the Department of Homeland Security. And a bad day for them is different than a bad day for a musician, right? Like, and I heard when I first started, I'm not pointing fingers, but people in AFM leadership talking about that there was a crisis happening at TSA. And I think my response was, a crisis for TSA is when a plane goes down. And I think just keeping that in mind of when we travel, that musicians are great. I love musicians. I love everything about music, but who are we talking about? What's the context in the world in which we live in, and who are we talking to? So that's their job, is to keep us safe. These new machines are designed to keep us safer and designed to make the lines go faster. And they do so because, so I wanted to get a little smarter about what these machines were before I went in and complained to TSA about them. So it's an image, it's a 3D image, and that TSA agent can rotate the picture that he or she is seeing. And that's why with these newer machines, you don't have to remove a larger electronic device, which I like sometimes. I often travel with a laptop, and because they can effectively look around your laptop. So that's what this machine is doing. So we should be grateful for the new technology. The other question that I got was, why does it have to go in the bin? So you may have traveled, if you've traveled with a guitar and you say, oh, my guitar will fit just fine through the opening of that X-ray machine, but oh, wait a second, it doesn't fit through the bin, and therefore it has to be hand inspected. And the bin, so that's a question that I posed to TSA, is why the bin? If, if our musicians could just put it flat on the belt, no hand inspection, and it's just because that's what the technology that demands in order to create that three-dimensional image, it takes the picture of what's in the bin. So they registered that as an issue. It's something that they've heard about. So we know that it's the smaller entry point to X-ray. We know that it's going to fit in the bin. Also know that these are going to be rolled out across the country. Just because you fly through Austin or Nashville and you say, if I go through the East security checkpoint, I know they have the larger X-ray. Don't assume that continues to be the case, even if you were there the day before or the week before, whatever it is. In talking with TSA, this is the best technology and these machines will be rolled out throughout the country. They weren't able, because it's a matter of national security. They don't give me the exact schedule of when you can expect these machines, but do expect and prepare for hand inspection. So the kinds of things that I talked about with TSA, if you're not familiar, TSA has a program, and this is all in the Instagram, the beautiful image that Antoinette created in the Instagram post. There's a program called TSA Cares. And as Hilary referenced, there are things you can do even before you get to the airport. If you're not familiar with TSA Cares, it's a program that's 72 hours in advance of your travel. You can do an online form, or there's a phone number you can call, and it's originally designed for individuals with religious head coverings or medical devices or things that they would want that TSA agent to know before they arrive. So they're not having to have the conversation when they get there and there's a big line behind them about, I'm not going to remove this religious head covering. I have an artificial hip that I know will set off the machine. I can't go through that machine, whatever it is. So you could put into TSA Cares, I have this instrument. I'd like a supervisor present. Here's what to expect. I travel with strings. Those strings are not a weapon. Whatever it is that you would like that agent to know before you arrive, because I'm with you, Mary. I view this, and I will say, I don't know who's all on this call. I think about this as you've just been pulled over by the cops, and you're trying to make this go as quickly and easily as possible. So how do we keep the temperature down? How do we not ask for a supervisor? Because sometimes people might perceive that to be an insult. How do you not have to say, this is the $12,000 guitar? Someone could perceive that as what, I'm too stupid to handle your expensive guitar. Do you think you're better than me? Whatever it is, I can just see this get ratcheted up. So how do we avoid that? Put it in TSA Cares, let them know in advance. If TSA Cares doesn't work, I'd love to know about that. And so I can go back to TSA. I know the kind of the feedback I got when I first was talking about TSA Cares, like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's an oxymoron. TSA Cares, ha ha ha. Yeah, maybe, but they have this program, so let's try it out and let's give them feedback if it doesn't work. So try it out. Let me know how it goes. Would love to give TSA that feedback. I think the kinds of things that we're talking about is, can you make it a little simpler for them? Can you take other tools of the trade out of your case and just make it that instrument? I saw some people suggest that, sometimes there are rules involved, that people would, I think it's a preference, right? They'd rather just look at your instrument. I think what's great to keep in mind and about TSA or on the airlines, they don't want to break your instrument either. They don't want to be tagged on social media when your instrument breaks. So just keep it in mind. The things that so try TSA Cares. Let me know if it doesn't work. Let me know if you have a good experience. You are entitled to keep an eye on your luggage at all times. You're not entitled to a supervisor, but you may ask for one. And the chance of having a supervisor present certainly goes up if you request it in advance. So that's the TSA piece. And that's why again, because that's Department of Homeland Security, happy to, of course, jump in about what I'm thinking about on the airlines, but I will pause there.
I just want to ask quickly a follow-up question about the new machines. I believe when I was flying with Air Canada, it was the first time I had seen one of those machines, I'm almost positive. And they had like these little flat trays instead of the bins. And for whatever reason, that flat tray, I was allowed to put my guitar on that tray and have that go through the machine without having to have it hand inspected. But I have not seen that as a consistent thing at any of the other airports that I've traveled through that have had those same new machines. I was wondering if you knew anything about that,
I
or if
mean,
we could
that's
like
great that
petition for those little
yeah,
trays.
that's great that because I think the feedback that I got when talking with people who roll out new technologies at TSA was that was having to fit in the bin is a problem for all travelers, right? If you have a larger roller bag, whatever it might be, in practice, right, TSA would like to hand inspect fewer pieces of luggage because it slows down the process for everybody. So that's great that they're adapting to it. I haven't seen that. I mean, maybe that's something they're just rolling out, but that's just great to hear because again, I just heard that it's not preference beyond, it's just how the technology works. So perhaps as we see the technology involved, hopefully we'll see those kinds of things. Chris, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks to you both. And just as an extra point of clarification, when we're talking about TSA, we mean in the United States. I know that there are a number of people on this webinar who are not primarily flying around the US. So please just keep that in mind for anyone outside of America. I would actually like to pivot to our Q&A, if that works for everyone. Dan,
Well,
go
I want to
ahead.
jump in on something I just read in the chat, and I can make this quick because I think that's a good pivot. Miguel asked about, well, are the old school hard-sided flight cases no longer effective? No, they are the most effective. They are vaults. They'll protect your instrument like crazy. They're just really big, and really heavy and really bulky. So they're not that great for solo artists on the road without, well, if you have a road crew, put everything in flight cases, send it by rocket cargo, and you're fine. But that doesn't apply to our community.
And it's also expensive. So the case itself is expensive. Checking the thing in a hard case is expensive. For every leg, you have to go and check it again. It's a difficult thing. I also want to make sure at some point, if it doesn't come up in the chat, to talk about the very concerning thing that we talked about before. Dan, at some point in our prep, you mentioned something about how there might be rules coming down the pipeline about what a person of any kind, any profession, can take on the airplane at all. Like at some point, there might be some sort of prohibition for all large items. Wasn't
Well,
that the suggestion?
that's what Ben was referring to with the bin. And in other words, because my
I
guitar will
see.
always fit through the X-ray and it's never been stopped. We've all seen those bins, and I've had suitcases go in there and people go, it won't fit, and try to and check it for me.
Right.
But the guitar is always bigger than that bin, but it goes through. I wear it on my back, no issue whatsoever. I'm probably going to investigate some sort of hard case, like maybe the SKB.
Hmm.
Not Gator, but well, Gator makes one that's ATA approved and has ATA locks, but it's shaped like a guitar. I'm not sure it's enough protection. Everybody's going Calton. And what's the other one? Is it Hoffy or something like that that's similar? They're fiberglass and resin, and they're really heavy and they're really expensive. In the old days, and I have two of these, a triangular case called a Mark Leaf from Kansas City. Mark Leaf passed away in the late 70s. You can find these cases out there for $300 to $800. I found a guy on eBay who didn't know what he had, and I bought it for $75. They're fiberglass and resin, and they'll work, but they also are not modern, which means they flake, they crack. And so
Hmm.
you're walking around in
They don't
shorts and
last long.
they don't last long, but you can also fix them yourself with a fiberglass and resin net surfboard repair kit, basically. So I have patched this thing to the hilt, and it does do the job, but
Same.
it's not great. It could be, Caltons are better, but I mean, they were $500 back in the day for the Mark Leaf is the name, and you can search them on Reverb. At any rate, yeah, we're going to have to figure out what really works. I wanted to get to Miguel Gonzalez's thing about the flight, anvil cases and their equivalents. They're great. They're just big, bulky. They didn't used to charge for overweight. They didn't used to charge for oversized, which is how we could get a 4x4x7 foot upright bass case that I used to weep over because this is grandma. I'll tell another anecdote about Vin Scully from the Dodgers going, "What's in there?" And I said, "It's an upright bass." He goes, "I always wondered how they did that." It was one of my great Vin Scully things. I'll shut up.
Thank you, Dan. Ben, I'm sure you have many
No,
responses.
I think just want to clarify and make sure. So when we're talking about the bin, that's just what you can get through security. And what I've heard from musicians and AFM leadership is the concern about hand inspection, right? And being prepared for, so hand inspection. So you could pass through TSA either way, either it's moving through the X-ray or it has to be hand inspected. And hand inspection could be because, I don't know, I've had my roller bag and they think, oh, what's that? Oh, it's a cord. They thought it was something else and they needed to go through the entire piece of luggage. But hand inspection for an instrument just puts everyone in a precarious situation. So how do we prepare for hand inspection and potentially how can we avoid it? Those are the two pieces for me. So just because it has to be that thing could still fit on the plane just because it has to be hand inspected. So I don't want to have any confusion there. And then I think for me, in terms of the regulation, and just before we get into Q&A, is understanding what the regulation does and doesn't say. I think I've heard some confusion that the regulation somehow suggests that the airline has to let you on because it's an instrument, they somehow have to take certain steps to accommodate your instrument, and that's not what it says. It effectively says that in shorthand, if it fits, it flies. And I think that's the great thing to keep in mind, and also to understand just I have no creative talent of my own, but I travel with a regular, just like mid-size roller bag. And my experience recently, just flying for work, in the last 6 months or so, is I've had, even if I'm, boarding group 2 pretty early on, getting on that plane, they'll make an announcement. There's no room on this plane for roller bags, that no roller bag is fitting in the overhead. And so what my goal is how can we work with the airlines to get the information out there so you can prepare, so maybe you'll make, if you have the resources and your schedule allows, maybe I'm going to check to see if another airline is flying a different kind of plane to where I need to go. Or I know when I get there, when I get to my plane, this is not going to fit on the plane, or it's going to have to go underneath the plane, and therefore, I will bring that bigger, bulkier case that I don't like to travel with, but I know it's going to have to go under. So how can we have those educational steps to make sure that you're prepared? That's the goal, as far as I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that y'all are participating and that the chat is and the Q&A are both popping off. So I'm gonna try to synthesize some questions and hopefully some almost like yes or no questions to start. Favorite airline to travel with and why? Go, please.
Southwest, hands down. The consistency is priceless.
That would have been my answer, and probably still will be, because the consistency is indeed priceless. But there's an issue with Southwest that doesn't apply, or let's just say American, Delta, etc., have closets that you can occasionally put your guitar in. Southwest has none. No closets, period, because it's all 737s. And the 737 is the easiest to get your guitar on. The 700, the 800, the MAX, all the overheads are different, but they're all consistently wide and deep enough to accommodate a guitar. And by the way, what I tell them when they say, well, you're taking up 2 spots, no, the neck is narrow. You can fit a 23-inch rollerboard sideways in front of my neck. And because I use the Taylor case, I don't mind that pressure. I wouldn't do it with a Levy case or with any lesser case out there. We'll talk cases later. My second favorite airline is Delta. I don't usually check, but occasionally I'll try. United's okay. It used to be American. They have closets, but it's always hit or miss. And as soon as I'm going overseas, I just say, screw it, put it in a hard case and check it.
And if I can
Southwest for me too. Go ahead, Ben.
No, sorry, I jumped the line. And my apologies, Mary. Just want to respond quickly to something that Dan said. There is no, in the regulation, and obviously we still have to manage the relationships on the plane, but there is no, you only get 1 spot, right? So if someone says that to you, that's not what the regulation says. And I know everyone wants to be accommodating, and thank you, Dan, for knowing that, so you can be accommodating. But just reading directly from the regulation, that it says, and there is space for such stowage at the time the passenger boards the aircraft. So once you claim that space is yours. That's what the regulation says. And again, grateful for the musicians on this call to underscore, how do we keep the temperature down and make sure everyone gets from point A to point B? But the regulation says, once you claim that space and that guitar or whatever your instrument is goes in the overhead, that is yours. They might want to accommodate and say, hey, can I put it in the closet instead? Great. Can I put it in this overhead instead? Great. But they cannot take it down per the regulation. Just want to make that clear. Sorry, Mary.
No, not at all. Quickly, Southwest for sure domestically. Delta's my number 2, and Delta's definitely my choice internationally. I also want to make sure that last comment gets included in the conversation. I've been thinking a lot about this today as we've been talking about our guitars and pianos. Of course, there are many people who play other instruments that are shaped in various peculiar ways that are beautiful to travel with and beautiful to play. And of course, in the folk world, we have a lot of those things. So my first comment about that is pass the checked fees on to your buyer. If you can add another $200 or $500 into your fee because of all these difficult regulations, and you have to do the thing to pass it on to them. You can even explain to them and say, I am so sorry I can't come for the same fee I came 18 months ago. Here's why, and they're totally going to be fine with it. Just ask for what you need, right?
That is such a good point, Mary. Thank you so much. And honestly, that was going to be the next question anyway. We've got a number of people asking about non-traditional or very niche specific folk instruments, or basically anything that's not a guitar. We've got Indian traditional instruments, Irish traditional instruments, even lap steel. So just trying to scan all of these scrolling things. Do y'all have any other sort of specific insights or suggestions
Just on the
other than what you
non-traditional
said?
instrument piece, if you think if TSA, just going back to TSA, I know that so much of the focus is on the airlines, but put that in, try and use TSA cares and tell someone, hey, because maybe they might not even recognize it as an instrument, right? How do you avoid that
Right.
conversation if you'd like to and just keep it moving? I'm going to be traveling with an instrument. This is what it is. This is what it's going to look. When you open the case, you will find this. It's in parts. Describe it for them. And that way you avoid that conversation, hopefully keep things moving more smoothly. But definitely, if you think your instrument is not going to be easily recognizable to, any layperson, put it in TSA cares, see how it goes, and definitely, give me feedback and let me know how that goes. Thank you.
A certain amount of this is
Ben,
going to
one of
become,
this.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna make sure that everyone tuning in knows how to reach Ben, as he continues to say. Let me know if you or someone else wants to put that in the chat. Dan, please continue.
Well, a certain amount of the alternate instrument thing is going to be common sense. Mandolins will fit, and so that you can end up with a later boarding group and probably still be in decent shape with a smaller instrument. A violin, a viola, a mandolin. Lap steels are not that big. Radoslav Lorkovich routinely travels with an accordion in a soft case because it's basically the size of a small cube. Sitars, the ruling indicated that anything cello and a guitar was considered a small instrument in the old ruling. Whether it still will be is hard to say. Cello and up required a seat because you just can't fit it, even if it's in a somewhat smaller case. People have asked about three-quarter size instruments. To me, that's only if it suits you musically. I mean, in other words, the music's got to drive this for what we do. We've got to remain professional and as good as we can be, which means we adjust to that. Some of the foldable guitars work. I've seen them. Some sound better than others. They don't work for me. I don't like them. That's my personal choice. But I certainly could travel easier with, I can't remember what they're called, but I've seen 2 or 3 different ones where the neck is removable or foldable, and they sound decent, and the back, it's the size of a big backpack, not that big. That's really personal choice. But this is an issue that, we represent hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of small businesses who travel for a living and who don't have the resources to simply hire more staff or ship everything commercial cargo. And this is why we have to know the system.
I'll speak to the pedal steel question. That's a little bit of a tag along to the
Lap steel, because pedal steels are huge.
No, I
Lap
know.
steel.
You mentioned lap steel, but part of the question was on pedal steel. So,
Got it.
in my experience with my guitar player, who also has toured with me with pedal steel and lap steel and electric guitars and acoustic guitars, to your point, Dan, it's really helpful to prioritize the music and yet be flexible as much as you possibly can be, because even though I love pedal steel for my set, I've been touring lately with just my own acoustic guitar, one acoustic guitar, and my side person brings an electric guitar, his pedal board, and his lap steel, and he includes a sort of, there's one of his pedals is a pretty nice direct in option that actually means we don't even have to backline an amp, which is kind of a big deal. So our approach has been to incorporate as much of the aesthetics of the creative experience that I'd like to present for my music, in a way that doesn't have to include the pedal steel that cost me $300 each way or whatever, because it's very heavy. It's a lot to set up also, and if I can reduce the number of instruments I require on the road, then probably it's going to be better. I'd also encourage you to really take the advice. If you're a singer-songwriter who has a band with these professional instrumentalists who've spent their lives garnering information about how to best present a show, ask their opinion. Hey, what are you doing with this other person? What did you do last year when you were on the road with somebody? Like, you can learn so much by simply asking questions of the people that are on your team and in your corner, and make adjustments where it's going to be beneficial to the bottom line.
I've just clicked on a few questions in the Q&A to say answer live, just to kind of highlight those. If that's something you can look at, I can also go back and see what they are. Ariel Silver wanted to know about the rules and Southwest in time for Folk Alliance. Folk Alliance, basically the rules changed January 26th. I'm flying out of Folk Alliance on the 25th to Nicaragua. The old rules still apply. I'm flying home on the 30th to Palm Springs, and new rules apply. If you want to game the system, don't stick around for the Sunday night. Get out of there on Sunday, and the old rules will apply because they'll change on the Monday after Folk Alliance. Folk Alliance this year is the 21st through the 25th, so the old rules still apply. Somebody else had asked, forgive me, I'm scrolling now, about lithium batteries. I only use 9-volt alkalines. I don't use lithiums because you can't really check them. So that only works if you have your guitar on board.
And it seems to me that they're getting stricter and stricter that in all travel, right? And all regulation, once you have something go wrong, then they're stricter about it. I know I've had experiences where I had to carry on that there was no room for my roller bag, but I had a laptop that has a lithium, and they said I had to take my laptop out, carry my laptop on. So definitely if you have lithium batteries in, whether it's a case or anything that you're traveling with, I would definitely be prepared that you're going to have to make arrangements to get that in the cabin rather than underneath the plane.
Somebody asked about a handy one-page list with the options for guitar cases. The answer is yes and no. This is the piece that, I've got to get it so that it shows because I've got the fake background, that I co-prepared with Joan Kornblith 15 years ago or whenever it was. And this is a hard copy. It's outdated. There's a more extensive piece with individual cases listed on the Folk Alliance website, and it's outdated. 3 of those companies no longer exist, and there are newer options. I'd be happy to prepare one because I'm weird and I like doing this stuff. So I'd be happy to prepare a new piece. I know Mary's on the advocacy committee. If you'd like to task me with that, I'll be happy to do it because I love researching this stuff because then I know.
We could also probably just quickly say what we're actually traveling with currently. What's your go-to case right now, Dan, real quick?
Right. My go-to case is the Taylor soft case. It's beige, and I'll put all kinds of guitars in it. Additionally, from, oh my God, I can't remember. It's from Access. I will buy Velcro attached pads if the case is too big for a slightly smaller instrument, like a parlor guitar, so that and it's like $25, and you can Velcro in place pads that will make it a snug fit. It has neck support. It does not have a Velcro overstrap like Reunion Blues does. It does not have a headstock support like some of them have, but it works perfectly well, and it's got plastic in the lid and in the bottom and in the side, so it's got some shape and some rigidity. I would never check it. And the straps are permanently attached. They're not removable. They're not tuck-inable. So they really, really sit comfortably on your back. That's my go-to.
How about you, Mary?
I have a Reunion Blues for my own acoustic guitar, and my electric guitar player has a mono single case, and he's about to do a double so he can have his electric on one side and his lap steel in the other, and his like clothing and running shoes and stuff like that in the same case, so he has one fewer bags to carry.
Yeah, I'm currently touring with the Mono Vertigo Ultra 1 because it is a lot lighter weight than the Gator that I used to travel with, and also because it has wheels, which is such a blessing in a busy, busy airport to just be able to drag that thing and go. It also has backpack straps, but the wheels are a total game changer for me.
One question for clarification as we are sort of starting to wrap up here. Can you all please summarize what the new rules are for Southwest, just so that everyone's on the same page?
I can do it, Mary can do it, or we can tag team. All right, so what you used to be able to get a boarding group based on when you checked in. If you were A-list, you were almost virtually guaranteed the first half of A group, even being at the end of A group, would get you an open overhead. Knowing certain things like there's basically 2 Southwest 737s. The old ones hold 143 people. The new ones hold 175. So you got to figure if you got rows of 3 on 143, you're going to have probably at least 40 aisle seats available, 40 window seats before you start getting into middle seats. So you'll find an open overhead. I almost always sit in seat in the aisle seat in row 6, 7, or 8. Any further down, it's going to be tough. Starting January 26th is going to be assigned seating, and the assigned seating will be with regard to the level of ticket you purchased or what your perks might be, being A-list. A standard seat is in the back half behind the wings. A preferred seat is in the front half, and I don't care. What I want is to get on the plane early. And they're saying that even A-list, well, you won't be any later than group 5. There seems to be no way to guarantee that you will get group 1 or 2 unless you buy the most expensive ticket. Also going away, actually gone away, is 2 free bags. I remember when it was 3 free bags in the old days. Eric Lowen, myself, Phil Piano would go, and I would slap $100 into the palm of the sky cap because we would carry 9 bags. And by the way, if you can afford it, over tipping buys you allies. These guys, the guy gave me his home phone number, his cell phone. Call me when you're coming. I'll have your bag tags pulled, because Eric was in a wheelchair and Phil was bringing a piano. So he became a dear, dear friend. And yeah, $10 a bag, not $2 a bag. Big deal. Mary's already talking about paying way more than that smartly. So it's money well spent. No more free bags. You get a free bag if you have a credit card. You get a free bag if you're A-list. And then after that, I think it's $35. And if you don't, then you're going to pay probably $75 to $80 for 2 bags. That's important to know. I'm going to start checking the guitar and carrying my small rollerboard with my clothing for a couple of weeks in the overhead, because that's more guaranteeable. I don't want them to take my guitar from me. That rule is changing. There's no way, if it turns out, because Mary said, or maybe, I'm not sure who said, that early bird boarding that you can pay for a fee will get you on. The old days of A-list, B-list, C group list also meant, C group, meant that if for some reason you changed a flight late and you're C group, but you're A-list, you get in at the very end of A-list without having an A group. So you're basically is the equivalent of A61 or A62. And we all have learned these methods so that we don't, because what hurts us the most are surprises.
Yeah.
And so the idea, the notion of knowing what you're dealing with, what you can expect, and how it works will get you through. I have had a nightmare of a time calling every couple of weeks. I hate this. I'm a business traveler. I've been A-list for the last 9 straight years, and that may be going away. And I'm going to be next year. I've decided to buy some flights just to do it. They can't answer the questions. They're answering them better now, but you still don't know. There's no way to game the boarding system, which is more important to us than picking your seat.
Whew. Thank you, Dan. I'm going to ask
I think, Hilary,
more.
just one thing on that, and just a reminder of that the line between airline policy and federal regulation. Like what we're talking about is Southwest policy that might, that gets in the way of musicians being able to do their jobs, but that's separate and apart from federal regulation. And I haven't heard anything that what Southwest is doing is somehow runs afoul of the regulation. So just keep in mind as you're engaging with airlines and they're doing something that you don't like, or they're telling you something, I think, ask yourself the question, is this airline policy, or is this something in the federal regulation that maybe, if it's the regulation, maybe you can lean on that a little bit more. Policy, you're probably just making your voice known, and this is something I don't like. I might choose a different airline if you go forward with this policy.
Super good point. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more quick sort of round robin question, hopefully concise answers, just because I think that there's some confusion about hard case versus soft case. When do you use and why? And then we'll have just a few minutes to sort of wrap up. So Chris, Mary, Dan, hard case versus soft case.
Never a soft case if you can handle it. Like the mono case that I use, it's a hybrid. That's the only reason I'm relatively comfortable using that. Like gig bags, flat out, no, don't ever do it. Hard case is always going to be your best bet because, as everybody's been saying, to be prepared for any kind of weirdness, you're better off with a hard case. But that mono is a hybrid, so that's why I can get away with using that one.
And for clarity, the reason why Dan and I are obsessed with these new Southwest rules is that we do board a plane with our guitars in a soft case because we're essentially relying upon the likelihood of our previous experiences being the case again, which is that we are able to board the plane and safely stow our guitars in an overhead bin, which is in a soft case. That's why we freak out about not having that early boarding access, because, you know, if Chris is going on with a hard case, she's not going to be as concerned with whether or not it gets taken from her at the gate, because the minute that thing is outside of your care, the risk of it being completely destroyed goes up incrementally. So for me, I'm still in the category of like, I'm carrying that guitar in a soft case on my back, and I'm relying on being able to put it in the overhead bin, which is why I'm obsessed with boarding the plane early. If we have to do hard case stuff going forward, it's gonna be rough, and it's gonna cost a lot, and it's gonna give me reason to go on an anti-anxiety, because basically, like, I feel like my guitars are gonna get smashed, even in a hard case. Like, guitars still get severely damaged when in a hard case, which is why we're here talking about this, right? At least for those of us that play guitar.
Yep. So there are soft cases and there are soft cases. I grew up in the era of the old school gig bag that was simply a sheath. Had a zipper, you put the guitar in it. It had no side support, no neck support. Then Levy came out with a soft case that had no neck support, but it had a vertical piece of plush foam that was meant to be side volume, but not support. You push that from the side, you're going to snap your neck off. The Taylor case, mono case, Reunion Blues, because again, I have Reunion Blues for one guitar because it's too big. I actually put it in a Taylor case, and every 6 months it would destroy the zipper and I'd have to get another one. It was just an inch too big. I'd make it fit. Reunion Blues is for my Taylor 818. It's just too big. And they have neck support. The Reunion Blues has a Velcro strap that holds it in place with the neck support. And I think it also has headstock support. The Taylor, what they also have in common is a sheet of thin plastic in the top and the bottom. The Levy case you put your guitar in, it's a sheath. The top of a Taylor case, Reunion Blues, and I believe mono, Chris, opens like a lid, not like a sleeve. It's not a sleeve, it's a lid. Or is that yes on mono or no on mono?
No, actually, the monos are cool because you actually can stand them up vertically. You open them, the thing flips down, and it kind of protrudes your guitar outwards towards you. It's
I
kind of
like the
a
fact that it
neat
stands,
feature.
but for me, the fact that that top will flip down, which makes it easy to put away, gives it a problem because it's the sheet of plastic shaped like the case that gives you some protection. My Taylor case basically is the shape of a hard case, but slightly smaller and slightly softer, but it will not give. I still won't put it in a hold because it's just not enough protection if a bunch of bags shift during turbulence. And that's the issue with all of the old school Martin hard cases are made of plastic with some foam. I've seen people use the ones that have a fabric cover with styrofoam. The plywood ones are great if the padding inside is thick enough and it sits snugly enough. But I'm possibly looking for trouble by using my Taylor case. It looks like alligator on the outside. And I'm probably going to go to the SKB, which I don't want to do because it's going to be walk the fine line between a wood hard case and a flight case because it's $400 and something, not 15. Countons are just too damn heavy. They're the best. They work. People check their guitars routinely, safely. But I'm moving around a lot and I'm an old dude. I'm freaking 73 years old and I'm still doing this. And the whole point is I don't want to have to carry something that weighs 20 pounds. I want something that weighs 5 pounds.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. We've got about 90 seconds left. So I'm going to sort of throw it popcorn around to our esteemed panel once again, if you have any other closing thoughts that you'd like to share.
I
I
actually
just
do
want to
have
say
one for
thanks so
no, you
much.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
If you have more questions, dan@dannavarro.com. dan@dannavarro.com. Write me and I will answer your questions. Ariel had a question that I'm going to get into more later. And this is where this all started for me calling Jen and going, we need an update. And so it's not a bother. If I can answer, I will. If I can't, it'll wait. But dan@dannavarro.com, ask your question.
I just was going to say thanks so much to Hilary for wrangling us so handily. We appreciate that so very much. You're the best. Thanks so much to all the participants for being up here. You can reach me. I am at Chris Matthews almost everywhere on the internet. You just have to spell it correctly. And if there's anything else I can say to be helpful or you have questions about, please let me know.
Same for me. It's a pleasure to be in the conversation with all of you. My email is mary@marybragg.com. And I will just close with my moment to encourage you to remain in that learning mentality. If you're a newbie to this touring thing or even just getting to Folk Alliance and back, just be willing to ask the question of Dan, of Chris, of me, of your peers at the open mic down the street, or of the Indigo Girls at the merch table. Ask the person that you saw, whatever, like ask the question and say, man, what's that DI you're using? What's that line you've got? What's that guitar? What's that this? Blah, 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 blah. We're here to be, we are a community. We're here to be a community, and the community talks to each other. You have to be willing to share your secrets as we're doing now, and then seek out the answers that you need. It's not that hard. It's tricky, but you have to ask.
Just yeah, just echoing the gratitude. Thank you, Hilary, for keeping us all in line and on time. And sorry for my speaking and now going over time. Just a reminder, I am government affairs. I'm a registered lobbyist for the American Federation of Musicians. So if you are a dues-paying member of the American Federation of Musicians, part of your dues is going for a registered lobbyist on this issue, on AI and copyright issues, on artist visa issues, on a public performance right for terrestrial radio, on figuring out how we get more money for artists on streaming. So this is an investment that our president, Gaiardi, has made in terms of making sure that musicians have a voice in Washington. So if you're not a member of the AFM, check us out. It's part of what I do, and I'm a lobbyist for musicians and grateful to do it.
And Local 1000 is your direct way to do that can help you as touring independent musicians.
My last note is, as the editor of No Depression, we have covered every single person or affiliation here in this call. Mary Bragg, Chris Matthews, Dan Navarro, the AFM, and the Canadian Federation for Musicians. We work with Folk Alliance all the time. And so just to echo that point that Mary said about community. So thank you again, everyone. Folk Alliance is also a registered not-for-profit organization and appreciates any sort of donations or support or membership that you are willing or able to engage with. Thank you, Cindy. I saw our president or executive director, Jen Rowe, is on this call. Thank you. And yeah, I turn it back to Cindy for anything else.
I'm just going to say one more time, what a knowledgeable lineup of people. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Hilary for moderating, to Ben, Dan, Mary, Chris. I just continue to be in awe of you. Thank you. We hope that this session has answered a lot of your questions today, but we also know there are still more coming. They're filing in as we're closing. That being said, we don't have to stop the conversation. Thank you to our panelists for offering their emails today, but also if you'd like to continue the conversation in our FAI online community platform, if you're a member, please log in and start the chat. Share about cases, share about tips. This is a way to keep it going, and it is a wonderful membership benefit to you. Also, I know you've read this in the chat about 5 times because I keep saying it, but it's important to know all of our webinars are recorded. We put them on our YouTube channel. It'll be up later this month, so please keep your eyes open for that. But most importantly, know that we are grateful for you. We hope you stay safe, you stay connected, and you have a great day.
We're grateful to you, Cindy. And by the way, if Folk Alliance does not have the ability to do like a message board sort of two-way conversation on its website, then they or I will start a Facebook group because this is pretty urgent.
So Dan, our FAI online community has that. So I'm going to ask Scott if he'll drop that link in now for us before we go. But it is a wonderful message board that we have going.
We can start a two-way conversation to keep this going, because it's what the biggest problem, and forgive me for taking up more time. Oops, too late. Is that a lot of us, those, you're dealing with three very, very, very experienced traveling musicians on this webinar, and we don't know everything that's going to happen. So how can you? Come to us, but let's start sharing tips, ideas, and I'm going to underscore what Ben said. Be nice. It's going to get you somewhere.
That's a fantastic closing line. Dan, one more time.
Be nice.
Nice. Thanks, team. Thanks, everyone, for being so nice. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, you guys. Love you.
Bye.